Hey, what's going on? And welcome back to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Your host, Thomas Keenan, coming at you. Today, we've got a fellow nerd, fellow person with the title of COO. I met this dude a couple of years ago. His name is Michael Hardenbrook. I don't know, what we go by this. Is it the
Mike.
formal
We can
version?
go by Mike.
Mike? All right. Yeah. Quick side note here before I finish your intro. I hated the fact that my name's Tomas, right? And there's no H in my name. And I hated the fact that my parents named me Thomas. Like, this is the most boring freaking name ever as a kid. And as an adult, it was like, oh, wow, blessing in disguise that you actually don't have an H in my name for marketing purposes. Because now it's like, hey, just go Google the Thomas with no H and you're going to find me. So I got real formal real quick when I started to learn a little bit about marketing and business. And just like, oh, thank you, parents. I thought this was a big curse in the beginning of life, and here it is being a blessing. It's funny how that tends to work out in many areas in life and business. Anyway, enough
Yeah, I
about
wish
me.
I could say the same. Go Google
So
Mike.
Google Mike. Back here, going back to a little intro with us. A couple of years ago, you and I got connected. I was tasked with kind of, seeing if you were the real deal and checking to see if you were a good fit for a position in a company that we both worked for at the time. And I don't know, you and I probably had 5 or 6 different conversations, and it wound up morphing and evolving into a high level position for you for a number of years. And you were sitting in the COO seat in a company. I was sitting in one as well. And we kind of just we didn't work with each other on a daily basis, but we kind of got to run with each other for enough, or a couple of times during the week, we'd hop on calls together and go over finances and talk to other people on the team. And it really gave me a good insight into you, into some of the stuff that you do in order to just be not just a solid, decent human being, but also be a stand-up guy in the business world who knows what he's talking about, right? Like I saw you come in and do things and move very quickly and turn things that were into, wow, that's actually pretty damn cool. So with that being said, Mike Hardenbrook, welcome to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Show.
Love it, man. Thanks for the intro. And yeah, I always enjoyed our time together, working together. We, some of those relationships stick out, and ours is one of those.
Yeah, for sure. So I got to ask, I know the answer to the question, but I'm going to ask so the audience gets this. You are one of the more nomadic people that I know. So
True.
What city or what country are you currently in right now?
Yeah, right now I am on the 27th floor in downtown Chicago.
Very cool. Tell me a little bit about this nomad lifestyle you have, because you're a well-traveled individual. You spent a lot of your life living outside the US and traveling abroad and really getting a good sense of different cultures, different countries, and the way things work. Like, how have those experiences helped you in business and in life? And would you do it over again if you had to?
Well, to answer the last question, absolutely, and for the rest of my life. Early on in my mid-20s, I had pretty good success that allowed me to travel, internationally. So I lived in Puerto Rico, I lived in the UK, I lived in Italy and Nicaragua, and kind of bounced around all over the place. And then I met Priscilla, who's now my wife, and she also shared the same passion for travel. And so at the time we were in Florida, so we used to bounce around because that's a real easy place to travel from. But eventually when you're with somebody long enough and you share the same values, you end up with some kids. So, a lot of people will leave that travel and adventure behind when that chapter opens up. But for us, we just thought, why does it have to stop? So, literally we moved, she had a son at the time when we first met that was 5, Ethan, and we moved to Nicaragua. We did some entrepreneurial ventures down there. We worked remote, and we realized that having a kid does not need to stop you from moving around. And that was long before everybody's working remote and doing homeschooling. But we found a way to make it work. And now that we have 3 kids, we just continue to do the same. It's just part of our lifestyle. We think that the world is a classroom, and we have a great time doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure that the kids, not just you and Priscilla, but even the kids, just get exposed to so much more, being able to travel and see new things and realize, oh, life doesn't just exist inside this little bubble of, small town suburbia where enter state and town name here, right? There's so much more out there than just what you see in front of you, right? And that was a lesson that I had to learn was, yeah, I grew up in, I didn't grow up in a small town by no stretch of the imagination. I grew up in the middle of suburban Long Island, which is pretty damn busy. But it still had that small town feel to it where it was like, hey, I'm kind of stuck in my own little bubble over here. And it wasn't until I got older, started making a little bit of money for myself, started investing in myself, that the travel opportunities came about. And some of them started because of work, some of them started because of, self-development paths that I wanted to go on for myself. And, if you truly if you're committed to it and you really want to better yourself and do things, travel, in my opinion, is part of the process. And because of that travel, you just get to see the world. You get to see things through a different set of lenses and like, oh, you know what? They keep talking about all this stuff on the news over here, but I've never seen it with my own eyes and for traveling perspective.
Look at this
So
war zone that I'm in Chicago.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So of all the places you've been, what was the favorite spot that you lived in as of now?
I think so I'll answer that in two parts. So as a youth, I think my favorite was Nicaragua. It was very
Mhm.
much surf and hang out and, bonfires on the beach and everything that you would think of. You can 25-cent beers and, friends that are
Mhm.
traveling and kind of off the beaten path Wild West. As a
Yep.
family, my favorite was we found a little town in Spain, and we had tried multiple places in Spain and just were really not happy. It was either overrun by tourists or it was too busy or the place wasn't good. But I just found this random place on Airbnb. I'd never heard of the town, but it looked nice. It had a pool, overlooked the ocean.
Mhm.
And I looked at Priscilla. I said, I have no idea about this area, but do you want to give it a shot? And so we went. We had this beautiful little villa. It wasn't big, but
Mhm.
it opened up to all the outside. So you felt like you were outside all the time, even when you're inside. And the kids just had a great time. I loved watching them swim. I loved the slow pace. They had siestas. They had
Mhm.
one grocery store, 10 restaurants, beautiful beaches. Um, and yeah, the scenery was great. But what I really loved about that experience was the amount of quality family time that we got to spend together. And those memories, even though it's been, shoot, 5, 6 years since then, they feel like yesterday because they were just so meaningful.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I really think it's awesome. You let's kind of switch gears here. You mentioned beer, 25-cent beers. And this is a hot topic for you as an individual, something that you're passionate about, something that you and I spoke about quite a while ago. And I wasn't at a place in my own journey mindset to give it up like you have, right? And now I have, but we're talking about alcohol here. But you're so passionate about alcohol and getting out of your lives for multiple reasons that you've gone ahead and decided to write a book on it.
I
So
did.
let's talk a little bit about this. I want to know, what was it that made you decide, hey, alcohol is no longer the right thing for me? And what did that path, what did that journey look like? And then I want to, on the backside of it, I want to hear about the book and what basically sparked you to have the idea or even the confidence to go out there and write a book on a topic that is as polarizing as it can be.
Yeah. I think, to answer that, you could start at where it all began, which is in my youth in college. I was party guy and, I did everything to extreme, everything I did, including the drinking. It's not like I was probably out of the norm. I did really good in college. I didn't drink during the day. I didn't drink hard alcohol ever. Um, but that was normal. That was socially acceptable at that time. If you're going to binge drink, college is the time to do it.
Hmm.
As I moved into grad school, like those party opportunities weren't there, but I felt like I had to have some wine in the evening or do something just to feel like I was still kind of that person that I identified with in college. And after grad school, and I did nothing with that and went into doing kind of the 4-hour work week model. And what that led to, I cracked that early. And what that led to was that I did not have a boss. I did not have working hours. I had enough money that I didn't ever have to worry about money.
Hmm.
And that equated to every night could be a Friday night for me. And which it usually was. So, but after time, I just realized that, hey, I don't like waking up hungover. I mean, I was pretty good with hangovers. Like I said, I didn't do too crazy. I mean, sometimes I would, but
Yeah.
after a while, I just started saying, like, I think it was like about 8 years ago, I just started saying, this is like enough. Like, I would go 30 days and then I just kind of go right back to it a little bit, and it wasn't crazy. It was just, I'm an entrepreneur. You can probably identify with this. There's no set working hours. It's hard to shut it down. You're always thinking. And the only way I could shut it down was to say, okay, time to quit. It's 7 o'clock, no more working. I'm going to open that bottle of wine, sit in front of the TV, talk with Priscilla, and just hang out and like leave it behind. And that, what happened is that turned into a routine. And that's not a healthy routine for me. And it certainly wasn't aligned to being the best version of myself and being optimized, which had, as I grew older, became more and more important. And I think that the catalyst to really take action on that, well, this was actually probably longer. We're talking 12 years now. The catalyst for that, because Haley's 12, and Haley was really what did it for me. I started thinking, I can't drink at night. I mean, what if she's crying in the middle of the night? I need to be there for my family. I need to be there at any time, day or night. And me, like, having too much wine in the evening, even though I can wake up, even though like I get all my responsibilities done, that just doesn't align any longer. And but the problem is I would look, obviously AA was not going to, I did not identify or believe that I should be there. Neither did Priscilla. And I know that's something that anyone that probably has a serious problem would say.
Sure.
But in my case, it wasn't going to align. The ideology didn't align, and admitting that I was powerless over this bad habit didn't align. And so what I found was that there were a couple books out there, but the majority of them were just an entire book about saying how alcohol is poison, which of course it is. But that was not enough to spark real lasting habit change for me, or to like how to hold a drink that's a seltzer water and deflect your friends that are asking you why you don't drink. None of these were real answers for me. And so I started to be more mindful of things. I started to really make it to 30 days. And like I said, I would trip and fall right after the 30 days. But what happened that changed it all and kind of led to this realization is that I went 30 days and I said, you know what? I feel so good. I'm going to go 60. And I went 60 days and I got to 60 like a breeze. And I got to 60. And I said, why don't I just keep going? And before I knew it, it was like 8-10 months I hadn't drank or even really thought about it. And that really started to make me think, like, what was it that changed in that period? And the first part was the amount of time. I was not giving myself enough time to unlearn bad habits and replace them with new habits. And once I did that, I realized that there were a lot of other things going on, which, I elaborate in the book.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful right there. I'll give you my version of it too. So socially acceptable, right? I was someone who was like you. I was never really a hard liquor drinker, right? As I got older, a little bit of vodka, soda, or tequila here and there, but I was not someone to go drink brown liquor and all that crap. Just wasn't me. I was much happier with a nice Mexican beer.
Nice.
Yeah, and I got the nickname early on from my friends that stuck with me until this very day as a beer vacuum. So
I wonder why.
Yeah, just I would suck them down so fast. Like I was like,
I can identify with that.
Yeah,
You know why I don't drink hard liquor? Not because I don't like the taste,
Yeah.
but because I drink everything fast. And if I drink hard liquor, there'd be some problems, and I knew well ahead of that.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. Like it's either all in or nothing. So I was someone who just, again, entrepreneur. You come home from the day of work. The grabbing of the alcohol was the signal to the brain that I can actually shut off here for a little while. And that became the daily norm. The daily norm transitioned into 20 plus years of doing it every day. Right. And you don't realize what it's doing to you on such a small scale, and it just compounds over time. Fast forward to June or May of 2020, I decided to take on 75 hard for the first time, and 75 days, right? Similar to you. It wasn't 30
Yeah.
days, it was 75 days that I said, okay, cool. I think I can do this. Matter of fact, I'm making the choice right now to do all of these other hard things. And on top of it, I'm going to give up alcohol for 75 days. Like you, on day 76, I went back and had a drink. Matter of fact, I had 5 or 6, and I felt like dog shit for a couple of days after that.
Hmm.
Didn't learn my lesson. Got back into the game, and like it did wonders for me, right? It also,
Yeah.
for the first time in my life, gave me the confidence that you can actually go a couple days without a drink, dummy. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I know that now, but let me go back to the normal routine, right? Went back to normal routine for a couple months. Did a whole bunch of the phases of 75 hard in between, and last October 9th of 2022, a buddy of mine reached out and he goes, "Hey, me and the fiance are about to kick off another round of 75 hard. Do you want to do it with us?" And normally I'm not one to go do that kind of shit with other people. Like, if I need you to hold me accountable for this, then I'm probably not in the right headspace to complete it. But something inside of me was like, hey, you just came out of a massive career transition. There's some shit going on at home. This is probably what you need right now to put that structure, that routine back into your life, and also stay away from the alcohol in a difficult time in your personal and business life. Okay, cool, makes sense. Game on. I've done this once before. I know I can do it again, right? So we do it again. Come out on day 76 and went right back in. I knew the spot I was going to. I got myself a greasy ass bacon cheeseburger, and I got myself a frozen margarita. And it was like, something was just different with it, though, right? From that moment
Hmm.
forward, something was just different. Had a couple of drinks here and there over the Christmas break of last year, and then I really didn't touch much of it come February of last year, and it was like, I'm done. Like, this shit's not serving me anymore. For some reason, I don't feel a pull or a calling to go have it every evening. And oh, by the way, since I've given it up again voluntarily, I've noticed that I'm not as inflamed as I used to be. Like, getting up and going to the gym in the morning,
Yeah.
and squatting or doing stretches, like, wow, my knees don't hurt. Wow, my shoulders don't hurt. I can actually, I've got some decent mobility. And oh, what's the common denominator here? Oh, you got rid of the booze. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
now the mind is processing this, taking it in. I have conversations with you about this through that period as well, because you were getting ready to, or working pretty heavily on the book, I believe, at that time, and we were talking about it. I was telling you some of the things that I've read, and one of the books, I think you mentioned it as well, "Food of the Gods."
Hmm.
I read that book, which was suggested by a friend of mine, another person who has quit drinking. And that book is not really about alcohol. It's more on the topic of magic mushrooms and what they could potentially do for you.
Right.
But they talk heavily in that book about alcohol and how it was basically put here to keep people average, right? And that
Hmm.
it's a tool to keep you average and keep you busy. Oh, okay, that's some pretty cool perspective there. So now I'm going down this path and being educated and having conversations, high level conversations with other people who've been there before I have. And I'm like, I see. So in my mind is like, this is the next evolution in the self development process, and this is what the successful people around you are all doing. And I take hints and tips and see people that I look up to and respect. What are they doing that I'm not? That's helping them win in their lives and business. And if this is the glaring thing that's in front of me right now, it's like, okay, cool, this is no brainer. I already know that I can give this up and be okay with it because I've done it multiple times. Now this is the final push, and now it's been February 23 until now, which is almost a year. I
That's
haven't
awesome,
I haven't
man.
touched booze. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome. Isn't
thank
it
you.
funny how? Go ahead.
Now I was going to say thank you for being one of the people who helped inspire me to make that choice.
Oh, I love to hear that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny when you talking? Isn't it funny how we can use the people we look up to um, as like to be better for ourselves, but we can also use other people to stay exactly where we are. So it's very easy in drinking to think, well, everybody else at this party is drinking. But if you don't want to be average like everybody else, then you can't think in that way. And that took a little bit of like a shift in my knowledge that like, look, if I want to be above average, stop benching myself on a population that's drunk half the time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's one of those things that once you see it and you see it for the truth that it is, you can't unsee it.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
at that point, you simply have a choice to make. And I'm not saying either choice is wrong. It's a very personal choice in my opinion still, but I know what the right choice for me is at this stage in my life. And I'll also be the first one to tell you, like, I won't tell you that I'll never drink again. Right?
Yeah.
I still think
Well,
that there's gonna be a
actually,
special occasion.
after a couple of years of going through everything, I will
Mhm,
still occasionally have like moderate amounts
mhm,
on very spread out occasions, and I'm extremely mindful about those occasions. And if I feel like, you know, it could lead to something else, then at that point, I haven't yet, but at that point, I would cut that off because
sure.
what's really interesting is like when you said that frozen margarita, I had a similar experience. It was probably, and I'll ask you this question, but uh, I remember I hadn't drank for maybe 10 months, and I was like, it would be nice to like, let me just see. I wanted to experiment a little bit. Like, why don't I just see? It's a nice day. Like, let me just have like this Moscow Mule, which, like, I don't drink hard alcohol, but that's what I ended up ordering because beer just didn't sound good to me anymore
Yeah,
from a taste perspective. And I just remember taking a sip and thinking, this is it.
mhm,
Like, this is what is the big deal to resist or wish that you could have for so many people, myself included. And I was just like, it's just like there's nothing here. And
yeah,
I don't demonize it. I don't think that people should do what they want. That I
mm,
do. I truly believe that. And at some point, so when someone's ready and it's causing problems, then I think, I want to give them all the support and information that I can, that I wish I had at the time, because I was trial and error, man, for many years. And I mean, that's where I came up with the knowledge. I'd screw up and I'd go back to it just like I do with my businesses. And I'd say,
mhm,
like, what did I do wrong here? What was different? What can I try that's different? And I worked with my naturopathic doctor to get body support because I know that there's a link between the body and the mind, especially when it comes to alcohol and cravings.
yep,
And there are easier ways to do it than I did.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. I had a buddy of mine who came into town last week. We had a quarterly meetup for my mastermind clients, and someone again, it's very similar to us, hasn't fully given up alcohol, but for the most part has. Like every so often, a special occasion or whatnot, he'll have a drink of what, and but he's not drinking daily. And he told me through his research, through his cravings that he's had over the years, it's a 90-second window. It's like the
Mhm.
cravings hit, and it's like, oh man, I would really like to grab, a frozen margarita with this Mexican, meal I'm about to eat, or, a
Yeah.
beer would be great right now as a cool down or a refresher on a hot summer day. And he said that he basically has a mental battle for 90 seconds. If he can get
Mhm.
through the 90 seconds, and it's like, no big deal. It's like his mind just moves on and goes from there. I was like, huh, let me think about that. And sure as shit, like I've had I have cravings occasionally for it, right? And since this is last week this happened, since last week, I've actually gone through that. I was like, oh wow, stop in the restaurant right now, go sit at the bar and order a plate of tacos and have a nice cold one. That sounds pretty good. And then it's like, get through the 90 seconds, and then, you know what? It's not that big a deal. I don't need it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's different numbers as far as like the amount of time a craving lasts, but a lot of them agree that, max that it's going to last 15 minutes. And
Mm,
so let's say you're at home and you're just thinking, oh, I sure would like to have something in front of the TV, or oh, it sure would pair nice with what I'm cooking right now. And there's things that you can do if you can get through that 15 minutes and you realize that, like, that's step one, is to realize
mhm,
like this craving is not going to last forever, right?
yeah,
Number two, you can do things that can just immediately kind of put it on halt. So for me, You know, if I were to have a craving and I was sitting at home, I'd just go for a walk, listen to something, you know, just clear your head. Or like, let's say in the case of the restaurant where you're just sitting there and like half your meal, you're still kind of thinking about um, eating that, and maybe you're with somebody, you could step away and go to the bathroom. And there's something called urge surfing. I don't know if do you know what that is?
No, no, let's hear it.
No. So yeah, so you just sort of like close your eyes and you imagine like this big wave. This wave is your craving, and you allow it to build up into this big wave until it's just at its peak, and you just keep imagining it. But then you just let it, just as it peaks, let it go back down and break. And you just kind of surf the wave until it's just, you just imagine it hitting the shore or just subsiding in a calm ocean. And then you can like kind of go back, and it actually, this stuff works and scientifically proven to work. And you know, those are the sorts of things that you can do when you have a little bit of knowledge and mindfulness about what's going on, that you can kind of get through to those longer periods where you don't even need to rely on that sort of stuff. But it's really just getting through those initial periods of changing habits, because it can be a big change for people's lives.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, and one thing I want to point out here too is, right, the information you're given here in this wave surfing can apply to so many other areas, not just, oh, yeah, I have an urge to drink a beer today. Like that can apply to, could be putting food in your mouth. It could be if you have
Yes.
another kind of addiction that we're not mentioning here, right? The same methodology technique can be applied and used on that. I think is pretty powerful.
100%. Yeah, it is not isolated to alcohol.
Yeah, very cool. All right, I want to switch gears here a minute.
Yeah.
I want to move into the business side of Mike Hardenbrook, right? You, sir, have accomplished some cool shit in life. Can you bring the listeners here through a little bit of a journey of, you know, how it started? How did you become an entrepreneur? Some of the cool projects that you've worked on, completed since then, and what you're currently working on now.
Yeah, for sure. I'll try not to go too long because I've done a lot of random stuff in the meantime, and so I'll skip a couple. But you know, it really started in after grad school. I went to school for all things. I lived in London. I was working with Sotheby's of London in the art auction business, and absolutely hated it. You know,
Mm.
it was kind of London was a cool town, but I was still broke working for that, and I ended up well, of all things, I moved to Puerto Rico, got rid of all my coats, and just was like, I need to figure things out. And what I ended up doing was, like I said, I was broke. I ended up going to Costa Rica to get a crown fixed because I was traveling down there anyways. And, you know, it was one third of the cost, one quarter of the cost. And it was just as good as any dentist I had gone to by luck. And so I've realized that a lot of people with big dental bills needed to go down south as well. But how do you know that it's safe? And so I built this dental accreditation and inspections agency with ADA doctors that went down. So we went down to Panama, Costa Rica. I
Mhm.
partnered with the government of Costa Rica, and we inspected offices. And then we were in the dental referral business. And as a first business, I had to get really scrappy and good with marketing. And what I
Mhm.
realized is, and I was good, just kind of just by trial and error, is like I said with alcohol, but also I think I had a knack for it. Um, but what I during this time I did a little side hustle. It's like, you know, I'm really good with pay per click and search engine marketing. So this was early when people were just starting to do courses, and I was like, I'm going to put a course up. So I did it, and it made, you know, pretty good money at first. But then I just remember this one day when I woke up and rolled out of bed, and there was like $500 or $1,000 into my bank account, you know, and I was like, yeah, we're doing this and we're not doing the dentist stuff anymore. And so I grew an entire educational platform, and this is kind of where my 4-hour work thing does. I leverage the experts of others because I can't be an expert on everything, kind of like the Udemy style, where it
Yeah.
was just and that went really well. And then I just kept rolling into other things. I did something called Growth Hacker TV. We were the first growth hacking platform on the internet, actually, and
Mhm.
that was a subscription model. So we were building MRR. We ended up building a marketplace because we had both those types of customers. We had both the marketers and the growth hackers, and the businesses, the VC funds, on both sides. And so we started matching them up. We went through an accelerator called Techstars out of Chicago, which is my attachment to Chicago. We did a VC round with that, did a raise and an exit on that company. And so after that, I was a little bit not in the mood to start my own company. So I was a VP of marketing for a cybersecurity, decent sized one here
Mhm.
in Chicago. And
That's when we
after
met.
that, yeah, that's when we met.
Mhm.
Took over phone sites, ran at every part of phone sites from product development to marketing to hiring the team. And, we made some big bounds, 400% growth in the first year. And that was, that had its challenges, but it was a very good experience. And of course we met each other. So that makes it worthy. And
Yeah.
yeah. And since then, I've been doing some fractional COO work, working on the book, working potentially on some coaching and community programs to support those who read the book,
Mhm.
and a couple other projects here and there.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely not one to, sit around and do nothing. You gotta have a couple irons in the fire at all times. That I think is pretty cool. Um, of all of the different areas of business that you operate in, because listen, if you have the title of COO, you have to have a little bit of skill set in multiple areas, in my opinion. Of all of the air and like I've seen you operate, I've seen you do some cool things in the development space, the marketing space. I mean, shit, just you getting down and dirty and nerdy with spreadsheets is just another cool spot, right? Of all of these different areas of business that you have to operate in on a daily basis, what's your favorite area of business?
Hmm. That's a good question. It's easy to say what you're best at. I definitely am best at growing companies.
Mhm.
What gets me out of the bed? I think providing value, making if your product doesn't currently provide the value that you want it to, and working on it and seeing it come to uh, in the hands of customers who are now saying this is awesome. I think that's probably my favorite. So that could go into product and customer development. Um, but also, I really love the team building aspect that COOs go through. You get to choose who you work with. You get to help them thrive. You get to enable them to kind of build the workplace that they want to work in. If you're that type of COO, it just depends
Yeah.
on who you ask. But that element I also like.
Yep, I love it. All right, let's get nerdier for a minute. If you had to go into any company right now, and basically they hire you on, they say, "Hey, you're a fractional COO. You signed a contract with us for 12 months. You have full reign to come in here and do whatever you want to operate this company and make it better." What is the tech stack that you're bringing along with you that is non-negotiable?
Oh, the tech stack.
Mhm.
Well, it really depends because as I know um, there are COOs can sit in a different seat at any time, depending on where the company is and its needs. So there are COOs that come in that are very growth focused, very marketing focused. They work with the CMO or the VP of marketing very closely, and they are primarily centered on driving that growth because that's what the company needs. There are COOs that sit in a position where um, potentially like product is a big thing in product marketing or customer success, and so that could be one. It could also be around like we need to structure the team and make sure that it's efficient, or it could be around fulfillment depending on that. So I think it would just depend on what the needs are. I tend to be focused on growth stage companies, and so that's what their burning desire is.
Mhm.
um, I will say that the tech stack, it's really hard to pull out of my hands HubSpot because I've just
Mhm.
been working in there for the last 4 years, and I just think it's the best CRM for marketers and for organizations to work within.
Mhm. Got it. Yeah, that's I know you rolled out and implemented HubSpot at phone sites, and it made a world of difference what was going on over there. But HubSpot, of all of my years and all the different software platforms that I've run and operated, HubSpot is one that I have never once played with. You believe that?
It's not the most fun thing to get to learn, I'll tell
Yeah.
you that, but it's certainly worth the time.
Mhm.
And um, it can scale to any size of organization. And I think you've seen it, the mess that can be made in ones that aren't really well structured products for
No, I've
CRMs.
never seen
And
such a thing, sir.
uh,
Matter of fact,
That was
I've
honestly
gone,
pulling us into
I'm
HubSpot was one of the hardest things
yeah,
that I've done by untangling thousands and thousands of customers and invoicing and
mhm.
correct tagging. So yeah.
Yeah, I believe it for sure. For sure. It's a daunting task, especially when you got a big ass list. And for those of you out there, a lesson learned, because Mike and I had to work on this and we worked on it for quite some time. Um, we had a lot of commingling that we had to untangle. And I never got to finalize it on my end for other various reasons. But you came in and there was 3 or 4 different companies running out of the same CRM, which just made a complete and utter disaster of what data was where and what products and services were issued to a client. And it just makes things very challenging. So if you are a small business owner, entrepreneur, you've got multiple entities or multiple companies that you're offering different services and products, do yourself a favor for the future you. Don't put all that shit together, even though it may seem easier or, oh, well, I'll save a couple bucks a month on a software license. Like, do yourself a favor and keep it separate. And the other good
To
thing
that
that,
point also
yeah,
is also a lot of people might say, oh, it's prohibitive. HubSpot's way is too expensive. It's not for me.
mhm,
But if you are a small business, check out their startup program. They do deep discounts for the first year. The second year, it's like another deep discount. And it can be affordable and grow with you. And if you don't grow, then you probably don't need it anyways.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. That I do. All right. Let's move on here, sir, and talk about the book itself a little bit, right? We talked a little bit about your stance on alcohol and some of the stuff you've had to do and the journey you've gone down there. We talked a little bit about the business side of things and that you're an experienced marketer at this point, on top of being a fractional COO, which I think is a huge piece of the puzzle. Um, but that also plays out into the next thing we're talking about here, which is the book, right? I want to hear the reasoning of why you decided to write the book. I want to hear about the book writing process. And on the back end of that, we're going to talk about marketing your book and how you're going to get in front of more people.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah,
Well, we could start with the title, No Willpower Required, a Neuroscience Approach to Change Your Habits with Alcohol.
got it.
And so I wanted to do something that was different than, the typical, well, you got two things here. You got a couple books that were written in the genre that I told you, which is like kind of, talks about how alcohol is poisoning and the social conditioning element, which I just felt like didn't go further enough. Plus the kind of magical plucked out of the air for no reason 30 days. That I think that no one wants to ask. So my approach is you have to go with the Lally study, which says moderate to complex habits need anywhere between 66 and 256 days.
Wow.
And to change a moderate to complex habit and replace it with a new one. The 30-day, I think, is more rooted in marketing, to be honest, because I
Mm,
don't think that anyone wants to ask 66 days because it sounds too long. Even if I said to you, Thomas, hey, I'm going to give you the plan to start a business that's going to be very successful in 66 days, you would say, that quick? Let's do it. But if I were to say, like, you got to stop drinking for 66 days, even if it meant a more optimized you, to lose weight, to feel better, to sleep better, have better sex, better spirituality, and just a better quality of life, it still sounds like a long, long time to people.
mhm,
Um, and so that was part of it. The other part was I felt there's only two labels: a normal drinker and alcoholic, right?
yeah,
And the truth is that there's this what I call in between drinker or gray area drinker. That alcohol is problematic. It might not be to a rock bottom. A rock bottom event probably will never happen, right? But it's still nonetheless problematic and something that they wish they could change. Just like sugar addictions, just like, you know, smoking or vaping or whatever. Like, I just started looking at alcohol not as like this addiction or sickness or illness, but as this. And certainly there are people that level, it needs to be addressed in other ways, but there's a big population where it could be approached in a habit sense, like, okay,
mhm,
this is a bad habit that I've learned, and how do I change that habit and replace it with something new?
Yeah, love it. So, all right, cool. That's the whole purpose and reason behind why you put the book together, and some of the information that you're going to convey in the book to the reader. Um, what was the final piece that was like, oh shit, I actually want to take all of this information, these years of experience, the research I've done, the other books I've read, and I want to take this information, compile it into my own book, and push it out to the public to help people. Like, what was that thought process? Were you surrounded by different people who had written books who were kind of giving you a push in that direction? Like, what was the spark?
So it's an interesting thing because I think I started writing it for myself, to be
Mhm.
honest. I wasn't as bold as I am now to talk about it. I felt like, oh, maybe this is going to make me look weak. Maybe people will be like, oh, he's got a serious problem, So like, it is one of those touchy subjects, but I think once you get out there, it's out there. Like, I'll talk about it anywhere at any time with
Yeah.
zero forethought,
Mhm.
but originally I was just like, let me write this for me. Let me write this because these are thoughts that I've had over the years, and I can just kind of put it down. I already journal. Why can't I just put something? But then so I'm writing this thing longhanded
Mhm.
in a journal with my pen and paper. And I just started to realize that, and I posted, I think, about it, but I blurred out what it was, and people seemed really interested. And as I went on, I was just thinking, this is the information that I wish I had so many years ago, and maybe I wouldn't have like had so much uh, falling down and reassessing and shit. You judge yourself. You start to say, am I weak? Why is it that I can go to the gym every single day? Why is it that I eat pretty well? Why is it that, like, I'm optimized in all these places? Why am I not optimized in this place? And I realized, you know I need to pass this information on, because it might not be for everyone,
Mhm.
but there's somebody and like me that um, could use this information. It could be life changing, and not only and as I thought about it, not only life changing for them, it could be life changing for their family. It could be life
Mhm.
changing for their family's family. And I was like, okay, I have to write this whole thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's kind of like I'll equate it to, you're the COO of a company, you're the owner of a company, whatever it is, right? And you're responsible for payroll, right? If you don't push payroll out and pay your people on time, there's a ripple effect that comes on that. And it may be, your team member or your team member's son or daughter or their wife that they can't pay a bill on time and it puts them in a hot seat. Right. Well, the same thing applies to this. It's like you've got this information. If you push it out and give it to some other people who may be wanting to learn more about this, that also has a ripple effect. And the ripple effect is going to be, oh, they're bettering their lives. They're showing up for their kids instead of them waking up on Saturday morning hungover and not being able to make it to little Susie's soccer game.
Mhm.
Now they can, right? Because they're not hungover and
Yeah,
whatnot. So like,
yeah,
you don't understand the ripple effect of that 20 years from now on little Susie's life.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the little things can make such a big impact.
Yep, for sure. All right. So you start writing this book longhand in a journal.
Yeah.
At what point do you say, "Oh wow, I've actually got to take this handwritten stuff and turn it into a digital copy so we can actually turn this into a real book?"
Yeah, I seem to be the guy of trial and error in this this interview. So what one notation though is that I finally decided, and you were actually, I'm going to give you the credit for this one because
Mhm.
you deserve it. Is that I came to you with the book idea, and I said I'm thinking, and I had started writing it at that
Mhm.
point, but I said I think thinking about doing this because I don't know how it was going to be within the companies that we were in, perceived and all of that. And you're like, get to writing, sir. I think I remember that's what you
Mhm.
text me back,
Mhm.
and that's when I was just like, I'm doing this.
Mhm.
And I finally did like kind of come out with, this is what I'm writing about. This is what I hope to achieve in writing it. And what I realized when I really felt the duty to write a really well researched book, um, was that the amount of people that came to me and said, I would love a copy of your book when it's coming, or is it available? When can I mean, people that you would never guess would say, I want this. But here's the thing, like, normal people can't get through Sober October. Normal people can't go like months at a time without drinking. It's a very common bad habit that people have, and there's really like a lack of resources. And so anyways, I'm writing this book, and there's just like 10 notebooks at this point. And I realized that, oh man, now I gotta read all of my stuff into Rev, the transcribing app. So I did all that. That was long. Then I realized, and people listening to this probably can know, I'm not the most pronunciated person in talking, and so Rev took a lot of my stuff and jumbled it up.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, so the editing process was a little bit of a nightmare to whip it into shape, and I realized that editing a book is almost, if not harder, at least the way I did it, than writing the book, because you want to go back and revise it, you want to keep it, depending on you ask, but I just really wanted this to be as best of a work as possible, while at the same time not holding up getting it out into the world.
Yeah, I agree with you. Putting the content together was not the challenge, and I thought that was going to be the challenge. Putting the content together, shit, man, I'd even go to say you're not even 35% done with the book by the time you have all the content together.
Yeah.
The editing process, and thank God I had a good editor. That was like, it blew my mind. Like, I'm not a dude who went to college. I wasn't writing papers and all that stuff. So I get Microsoft Word sent back to me for the first time, and it is just loaded with all these scratch outs, notes, and like, I'd never seen Microsoft Word used like this. And I was overwhelmed. I hit the editing team. I'm like, I don't know what you guys just sent me, but like, I have no idea what to do with this. Right. And I called them in a complete and utter panic, like frantic Tom, like, what the fuck did I just sign up for? Because if this is how it's going to be,
it's a serious project now at that point.
Yeah, that's just it. You hit that midpoint in this is my experience with any project. You hit that midpoint in just about any project where it's like, oh shit, I can't turn around and go back. And I can either go for, like, I'm in the middle here. And you get to that point where it's like, oh my God, what did I get myself involved with? Because you're knee deep in the shit at that point. But that's when you kind of got to just double down and make things happen. And when you stick through it and you finish it, it's definitely a great feeling, because it's an accomplishment. But then from a book writing process, that leads us now to the next phase, which is pretty much where you are at this point, right? Like, what does the marketing plan look like for the book? And I think some of the conversation that you and I had on it too was like, all right, dude, make sure that you're actually going out there and branding yourself, Mike Hardenbrook, the author, not just, hey, this is the book. And I think that's an area that I see a lot of people who are aspiring authors, or maybe they join an organization, that coach tells them, hey, it's time for you to write a book. They go out there, they write the book, they put no marketing behind it. They don't hit bestseller on Amazon, right? Which, by the way, is like, it's not that big of a deal, by the way, folks. And then there's no plan behind it for them to continuously promote the book to their audience. Right. And I think it's one of the biggest downfalls I see, because people put all this effort and energy into putting the content of the book together, and then they just give up and don't market it at all ever after. And like, I hate to see it, because I know what goes into it, or the amount of work that needs to go into the project. So for you, sir, what does marketing look like? What's the game plan there? And what's the long-term game plan as well, not just the upfront?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, if you're going to put all that effort into writing a book and all that information, you should give equal or more effort, I would say more, into the marketing aspect of it. Get it in people. You owe it to get it in people's hands. It should be your duty. And so I think the first point that I started with the marketing is I knew that the cover had to be great. And I put a ton of effort into that cover, to make it look like something you wanted to pull off the shelf. Think about, what if you're looking at a bunch of books on a shelf in Barnes and Noble, which one stands out? And so I wanted to make sure that mine was intriguing but yet clear. And so, I mean, I think the first, people do judge books by their cover, and so that was the first point. And same with the title. I wanted to make sure that the title, and I'm happy with the way the title came out. I wanted to make sure that it looked like something different, but it still communicated what it was. And so um, the next thing I knew is that I very unlikely was going to get mainstream publishing, and I was interested just from a credibility standpoint. And I did pitch a few literary agents and all of that, but even before that, I started tapping into the network that I knew, and also just going outside of the building and just cold emailing all kinds of authors and experts in the habit space. And so, like some of the results, just maybe to brag a little bit, but not really to brag, but just to say that this tactic works. Like I got, there's a guy that wrote a best-selling book called Hooked and Indistractable. His name is Nir Al. And, I sent him the book. I just pitched him, I just said, hey, I'm writing a book like this. I really love your feedback. I think that like your opinion matters to help get more awareness around this book. Would you be open to me sending it? Something to that effect.
Sure.
And so he accepted the book. I got a great blurb that says that like this is like if you want to have long lasting change with alcohol, this is a great guide for you. And so I put that on that cover. Obviously I'm going to use that. But I got some great other people. I got James Clear of Atomic Habits accepted a copy. Mark Victor Hansen, who co-wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. I've got I won't go down the list, but I've got probably about a dozen published authors that are respectable in the space. Not only like with my book, but potentially they could share it in the future. And so like that was kind of step one before I launch anything. And as far as like launching the book, we'll be doing that in January sometime. I don't have a hard date on it yet, just trying to move it around because January is a very competitive month. So here's the other thing is you got to think about it in that term. I wanted to get it out the door, but I was like asking people to take 66 days off as a hard commitment for the book during the holidays is not setting people up to win. And I want people to win. And so I pulled, even though I was done back in September, or probably before that, I wanted people to win. So January is competitive, like I said. Possibly February, we might push it just to get a little bit more traction. But those are some things that you need to think about as the timing. And you also need to look at like the industry that you're in. And don't get me wrong, I'm not speaking from massive experience. This is just what I've kind of been told, learned, and what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. Look, dude, you have, because you've completed it already, but when it officially launches, that's when you join the new fraternity, the Brotherhood of Published Authors, right? And that's something that no one can ever take away from you, no matter what happens moving forward in life. So, and some of the research that I've done on it too, when I earned that title, and this is going back a couple of years ago, it was, and don't quote me on this, may need to Google it again. It was something like 0.001% of the population becomes a published author. And not just a book author, but even like an article or a blog author, which blows my mind. Right. It's like that made, so we've got all these people, and like, in the circles that we run in, being an author is not that uncommon. And we don't think of it as this big deal, but you go outside of our circles and people who are, doing things for themselves and the growth of themselves and their companies and whatnot. And it's not that common. And oftentimes I need that reminder. And it's something that's going to serve here. A couple things are going to happen here, and I'm going to end it on this before we wrap up today. And I didn't expect this to happen until it did. When that book goes live, and the world knows, okay, Mike Hardenbrook wrote a book, he's now a published author, several new doors and opportunities are going to swing wide open for you that you had no idea ever existed. And, obviously it's up to you to make the decision if they're good opportunities or not, but those opportunities are coming, and they're coming heavy and they're coming hot. So make sure you're ready for it, right? As Ed Milet says, your best ability is your availability. Right. So just know when that sucker goes live and it launches that you're going to get people either in your inbox, in your DMs, texting you, whatever the case may be. Be ready for the opportunity.
Oh man, that's music to my ears though, because especially I wanted to write a business book, but this one is what I was meant to write. And And I sure hope I do, because the more I can get feedback and the more people I hear from, the more I think that I could, help people get where they want to be.
Yeah, I love it, man. Dude, I appreciate you coming in here today, spending some time with us, sharing your knowledge and the insight. I can't wait for the book to go live. I'm a big supporter and a fan of yours. With that being said, where is the best place that everyone can connect with you if they want to learn more about you or the book?
Yeah, anybody can go to my website. It's my last name, so hardenbrook.com, and there's tons of links there. If you sign up early, I will send out the guidebook. So I didn't mention I wrote a 66-day guidebook that is a companion to the book, so that you can follow along with all of the information in the book on a daily basis to just basically get from point A to B. And so if you sign up early there, I will toss that in, the digital copy for that, for free.
Awesome, man. Dude, I appreciate you, and I wish you the best of luck with the launch of this book, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you for tuning in to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Make sure you head over to stepitupentrepreneur.com and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast.